Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a ton to talk about today. The Knicks and a potential future star. Apparently, stars are clamoring for the chance to play in New York. Oladipo to Miami. That's a real possibility. James Harden making his much-anticipated return to Houston, to H-Town tonight. And I'll preview the NBA skills competition coming up at the end of the show. But have to start today with J.J. Watt signing with the Arizona Cardinals. The worst thing that can happen is on Monday's show, literally right at the end of my show, this news was announced. And I had so much to say. And literally right when the show ended, this news got broken, which was an utter shame. So now I'm getting a chance to talk about this. And apparently, so J.J. Watt signs a 2-year, $31 million sign with Arizona. Wow. 2 years, $31 million, $23 million guaranteed. J.J. Watt. It's still crazy to say that J.J. Watt is an Arizona Cardinal, especially for the money that he was receiving. So apparently he was deciding between two teams. He had narrowed down his field. He had a list of 4 to 5 and was picking between the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, between those two teams, I actually think he made the right choice. Between the Arizona Cardinals and the Buffalo Bills. If those were legitimately the two teams that he was deciding between, I think he made the right choice. I've never been that high in the Buffalo Bills. I thought that the Indianapolis Colts should have beat them last year in the playoffs. And to be honest, I thought that the Ravens had a better roster from top to bottom last year than the Buffalo Bills, but there's no denying it. Listen, I have a ton of respect for Josh Allen, was top 5 in passing yards, over 4,500 passing yards. Stephon Diggs led the NBA in receiving yards last year with 1,535. So they're a good team, and there's no question that J.J. Watt would have contributed a great deal to Buffalo. Arizona's warmer, though. It's just nicer to live in. So I get why between those two choices, he opted to go with Arizona. But let me say this first. I love J.J. Watt. I tweeted this out a couple days ago. He was the commencement speaker at my graduation at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. He was absolutely fantastic. He's a brilliant, witty, clever, charismatic individual. And what I respected about him, especially on that day, was that he was approached by multiple professional writers wanting to offer their services to help provide input on what he should say. And he told them, no, back off. These graduating students, these graduates want to hear J.J. Watt. They don't want to hear someone else. So I respect the competitor and how prideful he is. And he's hilarious. And I love everything about J.J. Watt. And I have no problems, no qualms whatsoever with him wanting that money. I have no issues. Listen, a team's going to throw you in the later stages of your career, 2 years, $31 million. Apparently, the Browns and the Colts were willing to offer more. Regardless, I'm glad that he was able to cash in and earn one more big payday. I genuinely am happy and thrilled for J.J. Watt. And the Arizona Cardinals defense is going to be absolutely ferocious next year. Chandler Jones, of course, Budda Baker, Patrick Peterson, Hassan Reddick. Now you throw J.J. Watt. I'm not denying that at all. But if your number one priority is to win a Super Bowl, then J.J. Watt is making a grave mistake. I have to say it. He's making a huge mistake. And I am really big on actions. Actions speak louder than words. Don't tell me about it. Be about it. J.J. Watt said upon his release from Houston that part of the reason why he wanted to be released from the Houston Texans was to pursue a Super Bowl. Again, I just listed out how great their defense is. But there were plenty of other options that were better and more ideal scenarios and situations to actually win in if you're J.J. Watt. The NFC West, let alone the NFC, is the hardest division in football. So you're joining a division with the Rams, the 49ers, a healthy 49ers, and the Seattle Seahawks. So let's break it down position by position, situation by situation. Let's look at the defense first, since that's the strength of the Arizona Cardinals. Again, J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, Hassan Reddick, Patrick Peterson, Budda Baker. This team is stacked. Vance Joseph, who was the defensive backs coach in Houston when J.J. Watt won his Defensive Player of the Year, is the defensive coordinator in Arizona. So I understand that tie, that nexus. But are we sure that this Cardinals defense is better than the Rams defense? Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd. The 49ers are going to be healthy. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner is back, along with Bosa, Eric Armstead, Richard Sherman. Okay, I'll give them that they're better than the Seattle Seahawks defense. That's a given. So already you're looking at potentially two better defenses than the Cardinals in their own division. Now, J.J. Watt also said it wasn't just the team that he thought would give him a good chance to win a Super Bowl, but also the quarterback. The quarterback and the quality of the quarterback was of the utmost importance to him. Now, we all know the maxim in football is you can't win a Super Bowl without a good quarterback. You need a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. We know that. And Tom Brady proved that last year. The Tampa Bay Bucks would not have won the Super Bowl if it wasn't for Tom Brady and his arrival. I don't want to hear that any other quarterback would have been able to come in there and achieve and attain the same type of success. We saw what Jameis Winston was able to accomplish, and this team was a mediocre 8-8 ball club with Jameis Winston, and they were a Super Bowl champion the next year with Tom Brady. So then the question becomes, well, how much do you believe in Kyler Murray? Now, to J.J. Watt's credit, he said that he texted Kyler Murray and said, I came here because I believe in you. So clearly J.J. Watt, who is a shrewd operator, believes in Kyler Murray. I have no issue with him believing in Kyler Murray. But do I believe in Kyler Murray? I don't think Kyler Murray is a top 6 quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't know if he's a top 2 quarterback in his own division. Russell Wilson, I think, is a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, although Kyler Murray is showing great promise, and he's a young, budding star in the NFL. He's showing great promise. I don't necessarily know if Kyler Murray is better than Matthew Stafford, although it's close because statistically, Matthew Stafford had more passing yards, had the same number of touchdowns, 26, but threw fewer interceptions, just 10 interceptions. Kyler Murray threw 12 interceptions last year. And according to Pro Football Focus, the offensive line for the Arizona Cardinals rated higher than the offensive line for the Detroit Lions. So I don't necessarily know if he is better than Matthew Stafford. And if he is, maybe it's by a hair. So you're talking about maybe the second or third best quarterback in the division, because I do think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think what I was hoping to see from J.J. Watt is picking a team that he legitimately could have won a Super Bowl with. Again, and then you just look at the entire NFC, the quarterbacks in the NFC. We got Tom Brady. I would take Tom Brady over Kyler Murray. I'd take Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray. Obviously, Russell Wilson, potentially Matthew Stafford. What if Deshaun Watson ends up signing with the Chicago Bears? That would be at least 4 or 5 quarterbacks that I would take over Kyler Murray. Then you look at the AFC, obviously Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. There are a number of guys that I would take over Kyler Murray. And then let's look at the totality of the teams. How do the Cardinals stack up now with J.J. Watt compared to the best from both the NFC and the AFC? Well, I would take the Buccaneers. I would take the Packers. I would take the Rams over the Cardinals. Maybe the Cardinals are 4th. in the NFC potentially. But then you've got the Chiefs, you've got the Ravens, you've got the Bills. That's at least 6 or 7 other teams that I value more and view in the upper echelon of the NFL than Kyler Murray. I just do. So, not to mention, the Cardinals probably have the worst coach in their division in Cliff Kingsbury. And it's not necessarily a knock on him. It's just when you've got Sean McVay, when you've got all of these Kyle Shanahans of the world, Pete Carroll, when you've got a lot of these good coaches and you're relying on Cliff Kingsbury to hopefully lead this squad, I don't know if I'm fully sold yet on Cliff Kingsbury. So for all we know, Watt could totally be striking gold in an unmined plot of land right now. We saw that the Buccaneers were a sleeping giant, and when Tom Brady decided to join them, he hit the jackpot because this was a team that had already featured a lot of young, promising talent, and they had superstar potential written all over them with their wide receivers and their defense. This was an emerging team, and Tom Brady just kind of opened up the door for them to showcase their talents to the entire world. Maybe the Arizona Cardinals could be that next team. Again, they've got a potent offense. They've got a great defense now. It's certainly possible. And again, I just think that J.J. Watt, as far as legitimately winning a Super Bowl, if that was the number one priority, I just don't think that Arizona necessarily is the best place for that. Now, with that being said, I respect the hell out of the move. He's a competitor. He's the ultimate competitor. He's an extremely prideful individual. And I do believe that part of what played a factor is he wanted to feel like a big contributor to a team. And listen, Arizona is a lovely place to play. Warm, you can golf all the time. So the quality of life will be much higher. And maybe that was more important. And that is totally fine. I have no issues with that whatsoever, or with him wanting to win in a tougher division and have to really earn it and grind his way up. That is totally understandable. But to me, I just think that, listen, I hope he proves me wrong. I just think he had some better options on the table. Not to mention, to add insult to injury, DeAndre Hopkins, his former teammate, recruited him. And I just can't imagine what Deshaun Watson is thinking right now, seeing DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt on the same team again, which is hard to believe that those two players have reunited, and here Deshaun Watson is still on the sidelines in Houston. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, happy for J.J. Watt that he got his money, that he deserves it. He's a fantastic player. He's a great individual person. I love J.J. Watt. But if you're telling me that winning a Super Bowl was the number one priority in this decision, I do think he was making a grave mistake. So, by the way, transitioning to the NBA, the New York Knicks, ladies and gentlemen, are making headlines for the right reasons right now. Yes, this report is true from Brian Windhorst of ESPN that executives believe that stars will demand a trade to the New York Knicks. Now, listen, I said this a couple weeks ago, right when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. I thought that initially everyone was saying that the year of 2020 was the year of the unpredictable. To me, I contended that 2020 was actually the most predictable sports year when it comes to outcomes. 2021 has been showing to be the year of the unpredictable. The Utah Jazz have the best record in the NBA right now, 27-8, the best record in the Western Conference. The Philadelphia 76ers have the best record in the Eastern Conference, ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks, ahead of the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets signed James Harden. Harden, KD, Kyrie are all on the same team. But perhaps the biggest surprise is that the New York Knicks are 18-18, are a fifth seed in the Eastern Conference right now. In the Eastern Conference. And this is why I love sports, because it's the ultimate rallying cry. It's the ultimate hope and beacon of light at the end of the tunnel. Every new season, you have all these fans that have kind of this reinvigorated sense of hope and potential with their team, and they root for their team. And the New York Knicks haven't won an NBA championship since 1973, and they made it quite known that they haven't won an NBA championship since 1973. In fact, the last time they even made the playoffs was in the 2012-2013 season when they had Carmelo Anthony, Amari Stoudemire, Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, who's actually a productive player and didn't forget time and score. This was a really good New York Knicks team, but again, they flamed out in the second round against the Indiana Pacers. That was the last time that they made the playoffs. And a couple nights ago, they celebrated after the fans after the win over the Indiana Pacers, 110-107. They celebrated in the streets of Midtown Manhattan like they just won the NBA championship with Willis Reed and Walt Frazier back in 1973. And there was jubilation, there was elation on the faces of these fans, and it's amazing what that can do, what a couple wins can do, and they're 18-18 right now. And listen, to Dolan's credit, the owner of the Knicks, it seems like he's finally hired the right pieces in New York. Leon Rose has been a tremendous team president. Scott Perry has been a great GM for the New York Knicks. They are highly respected, and Tom Thibodeau has done a tremendous job with this young team, making them a formidable team, and more importantly, implementing a culture. And that's the difference, is the New York Knicks finally appear to be cultivating a nascent winning culture, which was something that we weren't seeing before, but it's palpable. It's visible in their brand of play. They are a fun, young, exciting team. Julius Randle is an all-star. Emmanuel Quickley, who just dropped 26 points last night, has been a revelation for New York. RJ Barrett is still growing. He's still young, just 20 years old, slowly getting better. And so the brand of basketball that the New York Knicks are playing, players are gravitating towards. And we're seeing that. Now, of course, if there was a trade, if a player did demand a trade to the Knicks and they didn't just simply sign in the offseason, Julius Randle would probably have to be swapped out. But there's no denying the trajectory of the Knicks, that they are playing a more enjoyable style of basketball right now. And it's amazing what an altered perception we can have on a team just in a matter of months. And what a changed perception can do for the outlook of a team. So I wanted to think about which players rather would want to sign with the New York Knicks. Because again, according to Brian Windhorst, stars are going to be demanding a trade. He's predicting within the next year. So I thought about, okay, which players do I envision wanting, and I'm putting on my prognosticator oracle hat right now, which players do I believe, which star players are going to demand a trade to the New York Knicks? So the first player, this is an obvious one, Karl Anthony Towns. I'm sorry, Minnesota Timberwolves fans, you've got another Kevin Garnett situation on your hands. Karl Anthony Towns right now is I feel so badly for Karl Anthony Towns, because not only has he been playing like an all-star, this is a guy who's been averaging for his career in 6 seasons, 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists for his career. And the guy that the franchise deemed would make him happy to stay in Minnesota was D'Angelo Russell. He thought that those two guys would form a formidable duo, enough to entice Karl Anthony Towns to stay. I'm sorry to Anthony Edwards. I do like his promise. Karl Anthony Towns is out of there. He is out of there. It's not even close. And the New York Knicks haven't had a major star since Carmelo Anthony. Prior to that, they didn't have a major star since Patrick Ewing, especially a big. And if you're Karl Anthony Towns, would you rather stay in frigid Minnesota where it starts to snow in October, or go to the Mecca of basketball and the media capital of the world? This seems like an absolute no-brainer to me. And I just think that Minnesota right now, I don't see the direction. I don't see the future right now with this team and this organization. And what's perfect for Karl Anthony Towns is he just signed a couple years ago a 5-year, like $158 million extension with Minnesota, but he's only in the second year of that contract. So at the end of this season, he will have 3 more years to play under that contract. So if you're the New York Knicks, that's an optimal situation because you don't have to be worried about his desire to leave. You'll be able to retain him at least for a couple years, enough time to bring in some other good star pieces around him. And that's what leads to the second star that I think could demand a trade to the New York Knicks, or at least sign with New York, and that's Victor Oladipo. Now, I understand that people have forgotten about Victor Oladipo. Of course, he missed pretty much the majority of last season rehabbing a ruptured quad tendon last year. So he wasn't, people kind of forgot and slept on Victor Oladipo, and he hasn't been playing extremely well for the Rockets, who have lost 12 straight games, but he's averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. And Victor Oladipo, don't forget, in 2018, he led the Pacers to the playoffs and took LeBron and the Cavaliers to 7 games. Victor Oladipo, he's a gritty, fiery player, and he's a competitor. He's a competitor, but he also is desiring more attention. And I know not all players really publicly come out and say that, but Victor Oladipo would like to garner a little bit more attention, a little bit more consideration and respect. People have forgotten about him, and he wants to be featured a little bit more. He wants to be showcased a little bit more. And Victor Oladipo is a thespian, guys. He's a theater guy. He loves going to musicals. He loves singing, and you're right next to Broadway if you're in New York. And so if you're Victor Oladipo, I think you're strongly considering signing with the New York Knicks. Now, probably not in the middle of this year, but in the offseason potentially. So Victor Oladipo, who's a 2-time All-Star, and again, if you can pair him potentially with Karl Anthony Towns, you never know. You never know what you can create over there. So I like Victor Oladipo a lot. I know his preferred destination right now is the Miami Heat, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. But I do think that the New York Knicks are a viable option for Victor Oladipo. And then that leads to the third player, which I think who I think could sign with New York, and that's Zach LaVine. I'm sorry, Chicago Bulls fans, but right now, the current contract that Zach LaVine is playing under, he's underpaid. He's underpaid. He's an all-star. He's vastly underpaid. And unfortunately, the only way for the Bulls to retain Zach LaVine right now is they'd have to let him enter free agency as an unrestricted free agent and match a max offer that a team could throw his direction, because the Bulls have his bird rights. Now, it doesn't guarantee that he'll stay in Chicago. Doesn't guarantee that he'll stay. But if he likes Chicago enough and they're willing to match the max contract that I know another team's going to throw in his direction, maybe he'll stay. But I think you look at a guy like Zach LaVine, who this year averaging 29 points, 5 rebounds, a little over 5 assists. This guy's been shooting 52% from the floor, 43% from the three-point line. He's playing in the three-point. He's participating in the three-point contest this year. And Zach LaVine's just a baller. And New York is in desperate need of a high-flying, show-stopping Skywalker, a guy that you're going to walk through the turntiles to see. This is what the New York Knicks want. They need someone that brings that pizzazz, that brings those high-flying dunks and excitement back into the Garden. And Zach LaVine is a guy that I think would fit perfectly with their culture, with their entire system. And I just think, again, New York has been clamoring for someone to enthrall them. They missed out on the Zion sweepstakes. They missed out on all these other big stars a few years ago. And I do think that Zach LaVine is showing tremendous progress every single season. And I think that he would flourish in a market like New York. So those are some of the players that I think, the potential star players that I think would sign with New York. And now let's shift to Oladipo, who, as I mentioned, obviously he'd be a good fit in New York, but apparently he has expressed interest and a desire to play for the Miami Heat and Eric Spoelstra. So the question is, how good would the Miami Heat be if they were able to acquire Victor Oladipo? Now, when healthy and in the right environment, I do think that Oladipo is an all-star player. Can he be the best player on a championship team? No. I don't believe that. But I think that the culture that's been set right now in Miami with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and the supporting cast is enough to be a legitimate challenger, because now you'd finally be able to form a big three with Bam, Butler, and Victor Oladipo. The only issue is, in order for the Heat to acquire him mid-season, they'd have to part ways with two of the three young stars, if not all three of them. So Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and Kendrick Nunn. Now, if I was the Houston Rockets, I would want at least Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. If I'm the Miami Heat, obviously they're going to throw in Kendrick Nunn. Between Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, I don't know who they would prioritize. If it was me, I'd prioritize Tyler Hero a little bit, just because he's a playmaker a little bit more than Duncan Robinson. But all I know is two, if not three of those guys would have to be shipped to land Victor Oladipo. But the Miami Heat know that Oladipo is interested in them. So if they want to hold on to their young stars, they may just have to wait till the offseason before they can aggressively pursue him. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that they acquire him mid-trade for this stretch run. So now you've got Oladipo, you've got Jimmy Butler, and you've got Bam Adebayo. The biggest void for the Miami Heat is playmaking. I love Goran Dragic, but if your second best playmaker is a 34-year-old Slovenian guy, I'm sorry, that's just not enough, because they need someone to complement Jimmy Butler. Bam Adebayo is a great two-way player, but he's not someone who's going to take a defender off the dribble and set up a teammate. He's a great facilitator, and he's an underrated facilitator, but Bam Adebayo can't create his own shot, and more importantly, can't necessarily create a shot for others. Jimmy Butler can, Goran Dragic can, but he's 34 years old, and he's slowing down. Victor Oladipo would be a great combo guard to come in there, and I think he would complement Jimmy Butler extremely well, and he's not afraid of the moment. And those are the types of players that the Miami Heat attract, are guys that don't show any trepidation when they're out on the floor, that are willing to go after it, and they don't really care what name is on the back of your jersey, because they believe in each other. And that was their mantra in the postseason last year. That's why they knocked off the Bucks in 5 games, and he would be a tremendous addition. Again, the Heat, the Celtics, and the Knicks are the teams that he's been linked to. But if the Miami Heat can get their hands on Victor Oladipo, I would absolutely think about doing that. I mean, their offense would be much, much scarier. Again, if you have Bam anchoring that middle, Jimmy Butler and Oladipo as your wings, combo guards, that's a formidable trio right there. So I already have the Heat, even though they've been struggling, but they had won 6 of their last 7 games. I already had the Heat kind of right on that upper echelon, or if not in the upper echelon, right below the upper echelon, behind the Milwaukee Bucks and the 76ers and the Nets in that category. But if you add Victor Oladipo, I think they are firmly entrenched with the Bucks and with the 76ers. Again, I think the Nets are way better than all 3 of those teams, but the Heat would be legitimate challengers for that number 2 spot in the Eastern Conference overall. Morning Joe right here, J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, starting to grow. And on Monday, I will be dropping my new intro video to this show. It's a special surprise that you're going to want to stick around for on Monday's show. So mark your calendar, okay? This is going to be fun. Oh, I've been looking forward to this. I have been looking forward to this. James Harden is making his return to Houston tonight to H-Town to take on his former squad after that tumultuous trade situation, just a rotten situation in Houston. He demanded a trade. He got out of there. And it's amazing to me how quickly the narrative can change, because James Harden went from being this overweight, disgruntled, and flagrantly dejected superstar to one of the most valuable pieces on the Brooklyn Nets team, who are now favored to not only win the East, but potentially the NBA title since his arrival. This is a guy who's been averaging 25 points, 11 assists per game, and over 8.5 rebounds per game since he's arrived in Houston. He's averaging 25, 9, and 11 on the season. This is just, and this is why one of my favorite things is serendipity. And this could not be a more serendipitous situation if you're James Harden. This is a perfect storm, and James Harden literally could not have hoped to have played and matched up against the Houston Rockets on a better situation, in a better situation at a better time. This is the optimal time to play the Houston Rockets. They are reeling right now. They've lost 12 straight games. And the first time that James Harden gets to match up against his former team is under these circumstances. The Nets are rolling. The Rockets are reeling. And now you get to return to H-Town. And this is going to be just another one of these great hostile environment returns. And the fortunate thing for James Harden is he's got two teammates who understand what it's like to return to your former team and to be welcomed back with a cascade of boos. He understands that. And the Houston Rockets are apparently they've started to allow several thousands of fans back into the arena. And obviously their governor just announced a mandate of opening up all the businesses. So I'm not sure how many different fans will be allowed, but at least a couple thousand. And you look at his own teammates. So KD and Kyrie, they understand what it's like to be returning to an unwelcomed situation. Yet, more importantly, they understand how important it is for the role players and for the teammates of James Harden to play well to make sure that he looks good and he comes out victorious. Because the thing that you don't want if you're a star player returning to a team that you faced after departing in an unbeneficial or an unideal way is for your teammates to let you down. The best case scenario is you've got teammates that are riding with you till the end, that are playing all out, that are trying to annihilate your opponent. And KD, think about his return to Oklahoma City. The first time he faced the Thunder, he scored 39 points. The second time he faced the Thunder, when he was, again, with Golden State, he dropped 40 points. In his first return to OKC with the Warriors, he dropped 34 points in the win. LeBron, we know how hostile that environment was. That might have been the most hostile environment I've ever seen or witnessed for a star returning to his former team. And LeBron dropped 38 points with the Miami Heat in one of the epic performances of his career. Even Kyrie Irving, to a lesser extent, he missed his return to Boston last year because he was rehabbing an injury. But this year, in their first return to the Garden, he drops 30 points in the win. To a lesser degree, Russell Westbrook, who was welcomed back to OKC with open arms, he dropped 34 points in his return. So we know how motivated these players will be. And again, James Harden, this will be a cruel commemoration of the very first game of the season for James Harden and the Houston Rockets. Remember that first game of the season. James Harden drops 44 points, 17 assists, and 4 rebounds in a 128-126 overtime loss to the Portland Trailblazers on the road. That was when everyone was questioning his conditioning, when everyone was questioning whether he still had it. And he said, "Hold my beer. Let me show you for one small snippet of a game this year that I've still got it." And then he dogged it the rest of the way until he got traded. He has not scored a 40-point game since that opening debut this year. I am predicting right now that James Harden will drop 50 points against the Houston Rockets tonight. He is more than capable of conjuring up a performance like that. He scored over 40 points 16 times last year. 4 times he scored over 50 points, and he scored a 60-point game last year as well. This is a guy who can turn it on in a heartbeat. You know he's going to be extremely motivated. The Rockets are going to be fired up to play him. He's going to be fired up to go against his former team. His teammates are going to be fired up to go into battle with him. This is like you're watching the movie 300 and Gerard Butler, the main actor, is about to scream, "This is Sparta." This is going to be a bloodbath in Houston tonight. The Brooklyn Nets, mark my words, are going to blow out the Houston Rockets. If you're a betting man or woman, I take the spread if in favor of the Brooklyn Nets. James Harden, if you're betting on player comps, James Harden is going to drop 50 points tonight against the Houston Rockets. I can book it. And I have no doubt that even if the game is way out of hand, he's going to make sure that Steve Nash keeps him in there. Whether he wants to stay in there or not, he's going to remain in this ball game. And I know he said that he hopes to be received with love, and I think he truly deserves that given his accomplishments on and off the floor for Houston Rockets, for the city of Houston. He's won an MVP for this franchise. He's elevated them to a status that they haven't been in years, and they bought into him when no one else did. And he, I think, has rewarded them tenfold. And the success that he's had has been tremendous. But again, given the unfortunate, dire situation that existed in Houston and the way that he exited and treated those players, how he acted and behaved on his way out, I think that the Houston fans will take umbrage to that. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going to welcome him with cheers and open arms, though they should. I think he's going to hear a cascade of boos the entire night by however few fans, thousands of fans that are in attendance for tonight's game. So I think it's going to be a rude awakening if you are James Harden. Again, I hope that's not the case, because I truly believe that James Harden deserves better than that. But at the same time, it's no secret that the way in which he exited was not the most ideal. That part is no doubt about that. So I want to transition now to the skills challenge. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. And we've got the NBA skills challenge all taking place. All of these events are taking place in the same day, right? It's a condensed situation. And so what's interesting is that, and I realize that I just tossed some of my notes to the side, but that's okay. So when it comes to the NBA skills challenge, right, you've got the 3-point contest and the skills contest. Now, it used to be that the dunk contest was the marquee event of the evening, especially of those all-star Saturday night events. That used to be the case. But now what we're seeing is that the 3-point contest has been now viewed as the marquee event of the evening. And I think that it directly reflects the transition that we're seeing in the NBA. The NBA right now has transitioned to a shooting game. You see fans at Oracle Arena getting into a bigger frenzy for Steph Curry going on a hot streak from 3 than you do seeing a teammate dunk the basketball, which used to not be the case. Guys that get on a hot streak shooting from distance, fans are like clamoring for that more than they are a high-flying dunker. Now, maybe there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, that is why I think it has trickled into the All-Star game that the 3-point contest has become a lot more popular than the dunk contest. The other piece of it is, again, who's participating in these contests. We've seen that in the dunk contest. I talked about this on Monday. The trend that the NBA has been heading in recent years, less of the marquee guys have been participating. They've been shifting towards featuring younger, less proven commodities in the NBA. And this year's a perfect example in the dunk contest. Anthony Simons, Cassius Stanley, Obi Toppin. I talked about this. Anthony Simons, third-year player for Portland, averaging a career-high 8.5 points per game. Yes, he's got some bounce to him, but is he a huge draw? Not really. Cassius Stanley isn't even on the roster for the Indiana Pacers. He's on the Fort Wayne Mad Ants, their G League team. That's who you've got dunking, a great college dunker. Obi Toppin, I talked about him, the 8th overall pick for the New York Knicks. He's playing 12 minutes a game, barely playing, scoring 4.5 points per game. Yeah, he was a high flyer at Dayton, but he hasn't been relevant in the NBA. And now you've got the three-point contest that actually features all-star players, that features the elite guys in the NBA because it's less taxing on their body. So they're not as concerned about trying to preserve themselves for the three-point contest. And this year is a perfect example. Once again, Steph participating. Every participant in the three-point contest this year is an all-star. So they're going to be playing double duty here. And the three-point contest is going to take place during the pregame. Then the first half at halftime is the dunk contest. But the three-point contest, so we're featuring Steph Curry, Devin Booker. Both of those two are former three-point contest champions. You've got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, and Zach LaVine. Now, Stephen Curry and Devin Booker, again, have participated in this competition before. They've won this competition before. Steph Curry won in the 2014-2015 season, and this is Steph's 7th appearance in the three-point contest, which is hard to believe. This year, he's been shooting the three ball at a 41% clip, which is top 30 in the NBA, but he's attempting nearly 12 threes a game. For his career, he's been shooting it at a 43% clip from the three-point line. That's over the course of 12 seasons. This year alone, he's had 2 games in which he's made over 10 threes, 8 games in which he's made over 7 three-pointers. But for whatever reason, he hasn't always performed the best in these three-point contests. He's a really good in-game shooter. And not to say he's not a great practice shooter, because we saw him make like 100 straight three-pointers. So we know that he's the greatest shooter of all time, but for whatever reason, he hasn't always played the best in these competitions. And yet Devin Booker is a guy who won the competition 3 years ago in the 2017-2018 season. He's shooting it fairly well from the three-point line this year, a little over 36%. So he's back. Then you've got Zach LaVine, who's shooting at a career-best 43% from the three-point line. He actually participated in the competition last year. He was eliminated in the first round, scored a 23 in the first round. And you've got Donovan Mitchell right behind him, shooting 38% from the three-point line this year. Jaylen Brown shooting at 39% from the three-point line this year. The difference is, to me, Jaylen Brown is less of a create your own three-point shot type of shooter. He seems to be more of a rhythm guy where someone feeds him the ball in the corner and he shoots the three really well. Doesn't mean he can't create his own shot. I just think in an environment like this, I don't see Jaylen Brown thriving that much. And then Jason Tatum, the final participant, shooting 36%. So for me, I think the finalists, because you divide it up into 2 rounds, the first round and then the final 3. To me, the final 3 is going to consist of Steph Curry, Devin Booker, and Zach LaVine. I think that of those 3, for whatever reason, I don't know why, this isn't necessarily rational thinking, but I just think that Zach LaVine is having a special year. I think that he's going to have a special all-star day, and I think that he's going to win the three-point contest. I think he's going to finish first. I think Steph's going to finish second, and Devin Booker's going to finish third. I think LaVine's going to score a 26. Steph's going to score 25 in the final round, and Devin Booker's going to score a 24. So I can't wait for the all-star three-point contest. And again, there are all-stars in this game, in this competition, which is what makes it so special. And that's when you transition to the skills challenge. To the skill challenge, where you have to display dribbling, passing, shooting, and for the first time since 2016, they've altered the format to feature both backcourt players and frontcourt players, consisting of guards and consisting of forwards and bigs. And the interesting thing is, since they've changed that format in 2016, front court players have won 4 out of the 5 times. And if you consider centers different as the front court players, centers have won 3 out of the 5 times. Karl Anthony Towns won in the first format change in 2016. Kristaps Porzingis won in 2017. And Bam Adebayo won last year in 2020. Spencer Dinwiddie was the lone guard to win in 2018. And Jason Tatum, he's a forward, so technically he's considered part of that front court. He won in 2019. So this is going to be really, really exciting because I think that the change in the format has made it much more entertaining than before, because now when you get to that final round, you've got a guard matched up against a big, and people like to see that because it's almost the David versus Goliath. You think the easy, obvious choice is to go with the guard, when in fact the bigs have displayed more consistency. I think because the pressure is solely on the guards because they should be winning this event, that the bigs end up playing a lot more freely and end up winning the competition more often than not. And so we've got Luka Doncic, Domantas Sabonis, Julius Randle, Nikola Vucevic, Chris Paul, and Robert Covington. Now, the interesting thing is Luka Doncic and Robert Covington are first-time participants, and Julius Randle for that matter. Chris Paul, this is his 5th time in the skills competition. Domantas Sabonis is making a 2nd straight appearance. Nikola Vucevic is making a 2nd straight appearance. And for me, I think that I know that Chris Paul and Luka Doncic are the favorites for this competition, and they should be. But for whatever reason, this guy in New York, man, Julius Randle, has been balling, and I think that this competition is just tailor-made for him because he's as versatile and quick as a forward on the outside, on the perimeter. So he's got good ball handling skills. He's shooting a career-best 39% from the three-point line, which is how you have to finish the competition. You have to hit a three-pointer on your way back after a layup. He's averaging 5.5 assists per game, so we know that he can distribute and dish with accuracy and precision. And I just like Julius Randle in this competition. I think that he's going to go up against Chris Paul in the final. I know Luka Doncic is probably going to be favored, is going to be the money favorite. I would put my money, surprisingly, on Julius Randle. I do think that he is skilled enough and he has improved all facets of his game, and it's going to come through in this type of moment right here, and I think he's going to pull off a upset win over Chris Paul. So it's going to be fun. There's no question about it. I'm pleased that they were able to even put it all together, even if it is in this condensed form. Again, it's all taking place on one day. All on, I believe, that's Saturday, that's Sunday. I have to look back. I think it's March 7th. So if you've got the date on you, tweet at me at morning_Joe_ or at Jonah_Malkin, because I'm not sure if it's Saturday or Sunday, but regardless, it's going to be an entertaining, filled day, and I can't wait. And then obviously the All-Star game is going to be a great time. And I said this on Monday, but for the dunk contest, my pick is Anthony Simons. I know Cassius Stanley's got bounce to him. I know that Obi Toppin's got some bounce to him. But Anthony Simons, if you haven't gotten a chance to check out his highlights with Portland, this guy who's 6'4" with a 6'7" wingspan can fly. Again, I would have loved to have seen Zion Williamson join the dunk contest. He didn't. It is what it is, but looking forward to it nonetheless. Okay, final topic of the day, Malkin's moments. So this time I only have one moment. I had about 4 or 5 on Monday. Sometimes that happens. There's less. Sometimes that occurs in the middle of the week. But the Denver Nuggets got to give a shout out to Nikola Jokic, becoming just the 2nd center ever, along with Wilt Chamberlain, to record 50 triple-doubles. Yes, Nikola Jokic recorded his 50th triple-double last night. Just unbelievable in a blowout win over the Milwaukee Bucks, 128-97. He dropped 37 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists, I believe, 10 rebounds and 11 assists. This guy's just been a monster, continuing to build his MVP case this year. And he's just the 9th player in history to record 50 triple-doubles in the entire NBA. Guards, forwards, centers, it doesn't matter. And only Magic Johnson and Oscar Robertson did it faster than him, according to Elias Sports Bureau. And this is a guy who, coming into this game, averaging 27 points, 11 rebounds, 8.5 assists, which are all career highs, 3-point percentage, 41% for a center. It's a career high, and shooting 88% from the free throw line. All career highs for Nikola Jokic, which are fantastic. And his 8.5 assists per game is something that no center has done since Wilt Chamberlain, who's the only center to have ever led the NBA in total assists in a season. And Nikola Jokic is averaging 8.5 this year for the Denver Nuggets. He's leading them in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. Nearly 2 steals a game. Nikola Jokic, who's a glacier, is averaging nearly 2 steals a game, which leads the team. That is mind-blowing. That he's got the Nuggets rolling right now as the 7th seed in the Western Conference, and it's a shame that he hasn't gotten the supplementary support because he's been balling. He's been balling, and if Jamal Murray could just play a little bit more consistently every single night. I know he dropped 24 last night, and he's had a couple big games this year, but Nikola Jokic is doing everything, and if he just had some more help, this team would not be a 7th seed right now. They'd be a 2nd or a 3rd seed, maybe a 4th seed like they've been the last several years. So leads the NBA in PER and player efficiency rating. I can't rave enough about Nikola Jokic. He's been just absolutely fantastic. By the way, shout out to Robert Covington because he's the only active HBCU alum in the NBA right now. We obviously know that that's a big focus for the NBA in this All-Star game. And he's the only participant, obviously, who used to play for a former HBCU at Tennessee State. So shout out to Robert Covington. And again, I'm excited for this event. I think that players need this break, and I'm looking forward to it. So thanks again for joining me on Morning Joe every Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. And as always, have a lovely rest of your morning.